Welcome to the Morning Update. I'm Erin Ramsey. Some COVID-19 restrictions are back in force in Victoria this morning after a hotel quarantine worker tested positive. Private gatherings are limited to 15 people and masks are again mandatory in indoor settings. The 26-year-old man was working at the Grand Hyatt Hotel as part of the Australian Open quarantine program. Victoria's Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton says there will be more cases.
Testing of this individual indicates that he probably had a high viral load, so he's very close contacts. I think there is a risk that they'll potentially become cases. That's why we're contacting them now.
America's chief medical advisor says the risk of reinfection from new strains of the coronavirus is very high. Dr. Anthony Fauci says COVID-19 variants pose the biggest risk to the effectiveness of vaccines. Richard Hornet from the Lancet Medical Journal agrees.
We need to be able to go out there and track the genomes of this virus around the world, because that's the only way we're going to pick up these variants, and that's the big threat to the whole vaccine program.
The bushfire northeast of Perth continues to burn out of control and now has a perimeter of 110 kilometres. It's being fanned by winds of up to 70 kilometres an hour. Craig Waters from the Fire and Emergency Services says more volunteers are being brought in from across Western Australia.
We've also got triggers in place should we need to go to other jurisdictions around Australia and get other firefighters to come across.
The International Olympic Committee has released COVID-19 guidelines for the Tokyo Games. Spectators will be allowed to clap but not cheer or shout, and there'll also be frequent testing of athletes. IOC Associate Director Pierre Ducree says the protocols will start well before the opening ceremony.
We are documenting what will be the typical journey, starting with measures 14 days prior to departure, including a test before you leave your country.
And Microsoft has announced it will support the federal government's plan for big tech companies to pay for news. It follows Google's threat to leave the country if the policy is made law. Microsoft is keen to replace Google as the major search engine in Australia. To sport, the Dragons have done a backflip and will no longer try to sign Israel Folau. The decision was made at a club meeting overnight and follows a backlash from some fans over the 2-year $1 million deal. In tennis, Nick Kyrgios has blown up after being given a time violation for taking too long to serve at one of the Australian Open lead-up events.
I wasn't bouncing the serve. I was actually here, and he goes, time violation, Nick Kyrgios. And I'm like, and then he says everyone's serve technique is the same. And you can ask him, I wasn't bouncing the serve, I was about to serve.
The match eventually continued with Kyrgios beating fellow Aussie Harry Butcher 6-2, 7-6. Australia has also beaten Greece 2-1 in the ATP Cup, John Millman winning his singles match and John Peers and Luke Seville winning the doubles. There will be no matches today due to the latest COVID-19 case in Melbourne. In entertainment news, streaming services have dominated nominations for the 78th Golden Globe Awards, marking a shift from traditional Hollywood movie studios to major TV players. Netflix has topped the list with 42 nominations for shows including The Queen's Gambit and The Crown. Aussies Nicole Kidman and Cate Blanchett are both up for Best Actress in a limited series. Women have also led the nominations for Best Director category. Regina King picked up a nod for her movie One Night in Miami, whilst Chloe Zhao was nominated for Nomadland and Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman. And Ellie Goulding is turning her talents towards writing. The singer releasing a book called Fitter, Calmer, Stronger, which is all about positive advice, recipes and workouts. It's due for release in September. And that's the latest from the Nova Podcasts team. We'll see you this afternoon for another episode of The Update.